Imagine driving alone on a deserted road in the early hours of the morning and feeling like you're not truly alone. Imagine writing a cryptic, meaningless word minutes before leaving home and never returning alive. This isn't a movie script. It's a real, disturbing case, and one that remains unsolved to this day. A tragedy shrouded in mystery, paranoia, and clues that don't add up. At the center of it all is Martin Keller, an ordinary man who became the protagonist of one of the most bizarre and dark enigmas ever recorded. Martin Keller has always been described as a reserved man. At 34, he lived in a small European town, living in a nearly invisible routine. But to his neighbors, there was something strange about him in the weeks leading up to his death. He seemed restless, as if carrying a secret too heavy to bear. One night, sitting alone in his living room, he took a piece of paper and scribbled something enigmatic. 5 letters that made no sense at all. Yogtze. Soon after, he crossed out the word, as if afraid of what it represented. This simple yet mysterious detail would become the centerpiece of a puzzle that still intrigues investigators, scholars, and curious onlookers around the world. Hours after writing the word, Martin left home. He didn't say where he was going, he didn't tell anyone. What we do know is that he drove to a local bar he frequented. Once there, he ordered a beer, but didn't seem interested in drinking. The few customers present noticed he seemed nervous, looking around as if he were being followed. Suddenly, before he could even finish his drink, Martin fell to the ground unconscious. He wasn't drunk, there were no signs of intoxication, but he remained motionless for a few seconds. When he got up, he simply left the bar without explaining anything, leaving everyone confused. Martin's fate in the following hours has never been fully clarified. Witnesses claim to have seen him wandering aimlessly, driving alone, stopping in isolated spots. Some believe he was running from something or perhaps someone. Others think he was following cryptic instructions known only to him. The truth is that night, his every move seemed guided by an invisible desperation. His mind was consumed by thoughts no one could decipher. The written word, Yogtze, seemed to echo like some sort of password or warning, but without context, only mystery remained. Sometime in the early morning, Martin was found inside his car, seriously injured. The vehicle had fallen into a ditch on the side of a dark road, but the signs of the accident made no sense. The injuries didn't match the wounds on his body, as if something had happened before the crash. Even more disturbing was the fact that witnesses claimed to see strange figures nearby, some wearing white clothing, who disappeared soon after. Martin, still conscious, mumbled that he wasn't alone, that there were others with him, but no one was ever found. The investigation quickly spiraled into a maze of unanswered questions. Police were unable to identify the alleged companions Martin mentioned before his death. There were no fingerprints, no signs of a struggle, and no trace of anyone else in the car. His injuries somehow didn't match the dynamics of a typical accident. They appeared to have been inflicted differently, elsewhere, and only later transported into the vehicle. The enigma grew ever larger, and the strange word Yogtze, found on the paper in his home, began to be seen as the key to understanding what had happened. Experts, curious people, and even cryptographers began to speculate about what Yogtze could mean. Was it a secret code, an acronym, a desperate message? Some believed it could be related to the food industry, since Martin had worked with chemical formulas and compounds. Others argued it was simply the delusion of a broken mind. The fact is, the enigma yielded no answers, only more theories, and the more time passed, the more the line between personal paranoia and real conspiracy seemed to blur. Martin Keller, an ordinary man, had become the centerpiece of a terrifying mystery that stood the test of time. In the days following Martin Keller's death, the small town was in shock. Ordinary people, accustomed to a calm routine, now whispered theories on every street corner. Some said Martin was involved in something clandestine. Others believed he had uncovered a secret conspiracy. There were even those who swore he had been followed for weeks, seeing strange cars circling his street at night. But none of this could be proven. The only certainty was that before he died, he kept repeating that they were coming for him. The cruel question remained: who were they? The police followed every possible lead, but each one ended in a dead end. There were no reports of threats, no links to criminal groups, nothing to justify such paranoia. Even so, neighbors said Martin had been showing clear signs of fear, constantly closing windows, looking back as if someone were always stalking him. The strange fall at the bar, with no plausible medical explanation, became even more intriguing. What had caused that sudden fainting spell? A physical failure, or a harbinger that something dark was already attacking him from within? As authorities struggled to piece together an impossible puzzle, independent experts began offering their own interpretations. Some suggested that Yogtze could be related to a chemical formula or even a contaminated food production batch, given Martin's former profession. Others delved into darker theories, believing it could be a code used by spies during the Cold War, but no document, no record, and no official connection ever confirmed these ideas. The mystery remained intact, gaining strength with each new theory. Even more disturbing was the testimony of witnesses who claimed to have seen figures in white at the scene of the accident. Some claimed it was 2 men, others 3. What everyone agreed on was that these figures quickly disappeared before the police arrived. Were they illegal paramedics trying to help, criminals on the run, or simply illusions of the cold night? The uncertainty of these accounts further fueled the sinister nature of the case, transforming the tragedy into a narrative that seemed straight out of a thriller. Over time, the case was dismissed as a traffic accident, a bureaucratic explanation that never convinced the city or Martin's family. How could a simple accident explain incompatible injuries, contradictory testimonies, and a cryptic word written shortly before death? It was as if everything had been carefully shoved into oblivion, stifled by a lack of solid evidence. But instead of erasing the mystery, this decision only made it even more disturbing. Every official silence seemed to confirm that something bigger was hidden. Decades later, Martin Keller's name still echoes in true crime forums, books, and podcasts. His case is revisited by amateur investigators trying to find answers where the police failed. But with each new investigation, only more questions arise. Did he really discover something he shouldn't have? Or was he simply trapped in a mental breakdown that led to his death? The line between victim of a conspiracy and victim of his own mind remains blurred. What doesn't change is the suffocating feeling that the truth, whatever it may be, was buried along with him that cold night. One of the most widely discussed theories is that Martin Keller was involved in espionage. The decades surrounding his death was still marked by the dark climate of the Cold War, and many believe the mysterious word Yogtze could have been a code or password linked to covert operations. Perhaps Martin had stumbled upon information he shouldn't have known, and his death was a form of silencing. However, no concrete link has ever been established. Only speculation remains, which fuels forums and debates among curious individuals to this day. Another line of reasoning suggests that Martin suffered from as-yet undiagnosed mental disorders. The sudden fall in the bar, the paranoid glances around, and the compulsive writing of the enigmatic word could be symptoms of a psychological breakdown. But even this hypothesis faces obstacles. If it was merely delirium, How can one explain the witnesses who saw mysterious figures near the accident? Doubt makes the case even more disturbing because it combines the possible imbalance of the human mind with external signs that point to something greater. In police records, Martin Keller's case was dismissed as a simple traffic accident, but a thorough analysis of the documents reveals glaring inconsistencies. The angle of the car in the ditch didn't match witness accounts, and the injuries to his body weren't consistent with a single impact. Some independent experts still claim that he may have been attacked beforehand, transported to the vehicle, and ultimately staged as the victim of an accident. If this is true, we're looking at a carefully concealed crime. Over the years, Martin's name became almost an urban legend in his hometown. Young people grew up being told not to go out alone at night, lest they encounter the men in white who prowled the streets. The word Yogtze began to be spray-painted on walls, printed on T-shirts, and worn as a symbol of mystery. The case went from being merely a tragedy to becoming part of local culture, where the line between myth and reality became increasingly blurred. On the internet, the enigma has gained new momentum. Theories have multiplied on forums and communities dedicated to unsolved crimes. Some claim that Yogtze could be a reference to radio frequencies used by the military. Others believe it was a coded warning of something Martin feared. Most intriguingly, even with technological advances, no analysis has been able to unravel what truly lay behind those letters. The more experts try, the more impossible it seems to decipher. The enigma seems to resist time, as if it were designed never to be solved. There are also those who delve into supernatural explanations. Some believe Martin was being pursued by something unseen, an invisible force that led to his collapse and ultimately death. The figures in white seen near the accident would, in this view, be manifestations of something beyond human comprehension. While it may sound unlikely to rational investigators, these versions find traction precisely because the real case has never yielded concrete evidence. The inexplicable opens doors to the imaginary, making Martin Keller's tragedy even more chilling. Over time, Martin Keller's death became one of those enigmas that never dies. Each new analysis, each documentary, each discussion forum only added more layers of mystery. What seemed like a simple traffic accident grew into a case that defied logic. The word Yogtze remained like a ghost, echoing through the decades, never revealing its true meaning. Was Martin the victim of a conspiracy? Or did his own failing brain write a meaningless message that led him to the abyss? What is most intriguing is not only the unanswered question, but the profound silence that continues to surround the case. The mystery of Martin Keller lives on, fueled by fear of the unknown. Every detail, the figures in white, the strange wounds, the scribbled paper, seems to form a puzzle with no final pieces. And perhaps that's the essence of the case. It was never meant to be solved. It's a story that leaves more questions than answers, like an open wound in the collective memory. And that's precisely why we can't forget it. If you've made it this far, it's because you too feel that chill of the inexplicable. So subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and join us. Because every week we bring you stories that the police tried to close, but that continue to scream in the shadows.